Nicsmas. Let me know in the chat. Did you guys catch any of that? Or was I just talking to myself for like 5 minutes? You can let me know in the chat. It's getting warm. I'm going to take off my my sweater here, and then you guys can let me know if I just rambled to nothing, because that does happen. And we're live. All right. Well, last day of Firehose to the face. Make sure you hit your 6-word update. I'm going to recap what I said because I'm pretty sure I just talked to myself. First of all, I've been calling people a-holes for the last couple days. I'm totally aware of it. A lot of you guys are a-holes a lot of the time. So am I. Right? This is not, Nicsmas is never coming from a place of I know better than you or I am better than you. I am working, just like everybody else I hope is working, on getting better at getting closer to things that they want. I just share freely. Now, this is the last Firehose to the face here. Okay, last Firehose to the face. So, and then we'll open up some dialogue tomorrow. I thought I was 5 minutes ahead. Now I'm 4 minutes behind. That's okay. 6-word updates, go ahead and hit them. Now, we had a little bit of a drop-off. That's totally fine. You prioritize the way you want to prioritize. However, what is the least reliable component in an ecosystem? Human behavior. So, if you cannot do a 6-word update for 12 days in a row, don't change your plan. Don't change your marketing strategy. Don't change your sales strategy. Don't change your diet. Don't change your exercise. None of those things are the problem. The plan is not the problem. It's not. You can't do 12 days, 6 words for 12 days in a row. There is hopefully perhaps some evidence. You said, yeah, I'm going to do this every day. And, crap, I forgot yesterday. Well, until you can actually follow the plan, until your behavior and action matches your spouse behavior, I'm going to do this every day, until you can actually do it every day, stop changing the effing plan. The plan's not the problem. Okay, so 6-word updates. Go ahead and hit them. This is a great one. I'll show you my favorite one so far. Me, relative to me, peaks and valleys, because that's super relevant to today. I'm going to zoom through a lot of stuff. All right, a lot of stuff. This is the last Firehose of the face. It even says so right here. Last Firehose of the face. Okay. And yes, I'm going to keep calling people a-holes, but no, this is because I have sat there and I've looked in the mirror and I've called myself an a-hole. I looked at myself 6 months ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, yesterday, maybe later today. I look at myself like, man, I was an a-hole. And the reason I say that is I'm going to give you an example. If you have been hurt by the market, if you woke up this morning or yesterday morning or any time in the last month or two, and you've said, and you've been disappointed and you've commiserated or been angry at your kids or your wife or been super stressed out or nervous about the conditions of the market, I'm sorry. I truly am. It sucks to be in a place where you have no control and complete uncertainty, right? And the difference between this kind of uncertainty and the uncertainty we talk about is we do not have certainty over a long term. If you're hurting right now, if you don't have certainty over the long term, then why are you in the market, right? So look in the mirror, because if you are hurting, if you're like, oh shit, my whole life might fall apart if Bitcoin doesn't do this in this timeline, you are an a-hole for putting yourself in a position where something has to happen, an arbitrary number in an arbitrary timeline, and you expected the universe to bend to your will or read your mind. And if that doesn't happen, what do we talk about the last 2-3 days of Nicsmas? If that doesn't happen, I'm fucked. Why would you put yourself in that position? You're an a-hole for doing that. We've all done it. It's okay. I'm going to show you why that makes you an a-hole for being in that position. Because we do this in all areas of our life. Right? Again, no judgment. We're all a-holes. We are trying to act less like a-holes. The whole trick, this stuff never goes away. This is the last thing I want to say before we get in the slides. This stuff never goes away. You never stop being an a-hole. Okay? And obviously I'm using that word very, very generally. Like, you never stop getting jealous. You never stop, whatever your tendencies are. Everybody's different. Some people over-rotate to being too rigid. Some people let too much chaos in. Some people are prone to jealousy. Others are carelessness. Others get stuck chasing others, right? Envying others, stuff like that. Whatever biases you have the highest propensity to falling victim to, they don't go away. They don't. But instead of letting them control you for 6 years, right, the key is to recognize them and squash them after a day or two. Act like an a-hole for a day or two. Recognize it, adjust course, and then hopefully it doesn't happen for another 6 months. Recognize it, adjust course, then hopefully it doesn't happen for a year and a half. So the trick is that it never goes away. These are hardwired into us. These biases, these survival impulses. Not only are they hardwired into us, but because they're hardwired into us, marketers, I pick on marketers a lot, but it's anybody that benefits from influencing you knows that these are hardwired. So it's like they know there's a wound there, and they poke at it, 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 because as soon as you flinch, as soon as you give in, you buy something to solve the problem, and they benefit. You push a button and connect your wallet, and they scam you in crypto. So it's not, these things do not get eliminated. They need to be domesticated. It's like stoicism. That's why I'm a fan of stoicism. You don't eliminate emotion. You are delusional if you can eliminate emotion. You domesticate it. You understand what it feels like. You understand there's a space, and you understand you can make a decision in that space. And when you make the wrong decision, you recognize you've made a poor decision, and you don't doom loop. You don't make a series of bad decisions because you're like, fuck it. What's the point, right? So it never goes away. You're all a-holes. I'm an a-hole. Everybody's an a-hole. Okay? Let's just be so less often by developing the skill set and the diagnostic capacity to identify it. Okay? That's where I'm coming from. You don't have to agree with that, but no, that's the place I'm coming from. All right, 6-word updates. Hit it. You guys should already be hitting it because this screen was up and I was rambling for plenty of time. So 6-word updates. Again, look in the mirror. I have no judgment, but if you said to yourself, yeah, I'm going to do the 6-word update, I'm just going to do it every day for 12 days, and you missed it yesterday and you're thinking about not doing it today, then you can look at the mirror and you can say, wow, there's a huge disconnect between something very simple I say I'm going to do for 12 days and I don't do it. Maybe I should stop looking out the window trying to find somebody else to blame and look in the mirror, because I can't do something for 12 days after committing to doing it. That means one of two things. I need to be better with following through on my commitments, or I need to make less commitments. That's the real answer for most people. We need to eliminate the gap between what you say you're going to do and what you're going to do. That does not mean do more. I'll talk about that in a little bit. The fastest path to do that, the most efficient path to do that, the most efficient way to get aligned with yourself is to stop making more commitments. Whoa. System reliability. Less components. Of course, we want to make all the commitments and then force ourselves to live up for them, but the evidence is we don't. So not only are we a liar to ourselves, we become a liar to other people unintentionally. We become a bullshitter. There's something called the performative utterance. This was unplanned, I'm sorry, but if you're familiar with the performative utterance, those are words that are also performing an action, meaning that saying the words changes the very fabric of reality. Not like abracadabra, magic, but like I dub when you name a ship, right? Marriage vows. I now pronounce you husband and wife. That has actually changed the reality. If the right person who is qualified says those words, it's actually changed legally the ramifications of everything, right? That's a performative utterance. Your promises that you make to yourself and others should be considered performative utterances, meaning if you have a husband and he says, I'm going to do the dishes, and you know without a fact this guy has never, ever in his life said something and not done it thoroughly, then you can consider that a performative utterance. If he says, I'm going to do the dishes are done in your mind. You don't have to think twice about it. If a cop says you're under arrest, that's a performative utterance. If a 6-year-old kid comes up to you and holds up a fake gun and says, hey, you're under arrest, it's not a performative utterance. We should be striving so that the promises we make to ourselves and others are performative utterances. The very fact that we said we're going to do this, there should be no question that it's going to get done. That is not common. Sometimes that means saying less. Sometimes it just means saying less. Hope that makes sense. That was a lot, and that was unplanned. But performative utterance is really interesting. The things that the promises, I'm going to do this for 12 days. You say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do the 12-word update every day for 12 days. If that doesn't immediately change your reality because you're not entirely sure that that is going to be a thing, there's a gap in your espoused values, your espoused behavior. Yeah, I'm going to do this every day. And your behavior and action, what you actually do every day. Okay. So quote of the day. This is the central illusion of life, that randomness is a risk, that it's not a bad thing. Now, we can insert uncertainty in place of randomness. It is simply unexpected. We spoke before that risk is not uncertainty, and uncertainty is not risk. Okay? Uncertainty could be risky, but a risk actually cannot be uncertain. We can be uncertain about the exact outcome, but the difference between risk and randomness, or a risk and uncertainty, is the quantifiability of it. Right? Just really quick, just for semantics, because I use them both. If you put 90 balls in a bag, okay, and 30 of them are red, and the rest are black, yellow, green, and blue, the risk that one of them is not red is 66.6%. It's quantifiable. We know that 66.6 of the balls in the bag are not red. That's a risk. What is the probability? What's the probability that we're going to pull out a black one? That is unknown. That is considered random and uncertain. Does this make sense? I do know a book that is from. It's a book called How to Not Be Wrong, and it's actually how to take concepts and apply mathematics to disprove them, or to find the errors in some of the colloquial speech. Right? Like we talk about math, but our language actually means something different than what we're trying to say. Okay, so randomness is not risk. It can be risky, but it's not risk. Okay? Risk is a bad thing. We might have to take it, right? But we domesticate it because we want less of it. We don't necessarily want less randomness or uncertainty within a range. I'm going to explain that to you. Okay? A lot of good things. We have a DEX on BSC and Phantom. That's a huge, huge, huge undertaking and a huge opportunity in crypto. That was random. That was not planned. I want as much uncertainty as possible within a range because it gives me optionality, and it will provide options that I could not conceive of today. I want uncertainty tomorrow. I want something to come up that I could not conceive of being possible today, and I want to find it tomorrow. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so what is the biggest risk of all? The biggest risk of all is that we don't get what we want. Now, the biggest risk of not getting what we want is blowing ourselves up. It's blowing ourselves up. Right? You cannot win if you're out of the game. Staying in the game is the surest way to have an opportunity to win. Obvious, right? You cannot win the Super Bowl MVP if you're knocked out of the game on the first play. So the biggest risk of all is that we don't get what we want. And if you zoom in, what's the biggest risk not getting what we want? It's blowing ourselves up. The fastest way to blow ourselves up is to ignore the things that need to be addressed. Ignore the leak in the ceiling that's going to turn into a waterfall and flood your home, while spending all this time on things that don't effing matter. Not addressing the things that need to be addressed, and putting all these resources into things that do not need to be addressed. Right? So the key word here, and you got to be careful, the key word is curiosity. This is all from a place of curiosity. So I will say They say, oh, somebody will say to me, like, this person's a genius. Look what they did. I said, I'm not so sure that means that they're a genius. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying we should withhold judgment and stay curious about what happened. What were the factors that went into it? It's not negativity. I hope you can hear it in my voice. My writing, it comes across as negative. It's not negativity. It's curiosity. As soon as you are certain about something, you are no longer curious about it. The beautiful thing about curiosity is you cannot be fearful and curious at the same time. You cannot be in a full state of curiosity. You ever done something where you look back like, man, I wouldn't do that again? Why would I do that? Likely, especially as a child, you were just curious. What happens if I put this fork in this light socket? It looks like it fits. Right, so the key word, it's not saying curiosity is safe. We have to be careful that the key word is curiosity. We have to be careful that we don't become curious about things that do not potentially close the gap between where we're at, where we want to be. Otherwise, we're just like a person that's just curious about all kinds of random stuff. Okay? Yeah, I followed a lot of rabbit holes out of curiosity. Me too. The only reason the Wolf Den exists, which is becoming one of the most successful projects on Binance, Smart Chain, was curiosity. People are like, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if this? What if this? Blah 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 blah. I don't care because I'm curious. I need to know what happens when I push this button. Right? So the key word is curiosity. I am not discrediting somebody's genius in the way you think. I'm saying this does not mean that this is a good idea. It does not mean it's a bad idea. It simply means that we cannot conclusively say that this is for sure a good idea. Let's remain curious about it. Let's withhold judgment, maintain curiosity, and explore what it means for us relative to closing the gap from where we are to where we want to be. Hope that made sense. I don't think I've ever used any of those words before. Hey, so from a place of curiosity and not blowing ourselves up, what do we know? This is what I think that as a group of people here, this is what I think I know, and I hope that we can come to an agreement or at least be curious enough to hold some of these thoughts long enough to try them on. We know that humans are not very good at biasing function over form. If you saw Nicsmas 2020, most of Nicsmas 2020 was function over form, so I'm not going to go a ton into it, but we know we have a very hard time focusing on the outcome instead of the tools. We get very, very focused on tools. This is like you're trying to build a bridge from where you're at to where you want to be. Clarity, certainty, collapsing time. So the clarity piece, you go, okay, look, I got everything I need. I got all the resources. If I build this straight across, there's a very high probability that I can build this bridge from point A across this gap to point B. And you start building, right? And you've already discerned. Maybe you have everything you need, or you'll be able to find it. And then you look and you see that somebody over there is building a bridge, but theirs might be bigger. It's a little bit taller. So you start building a bridge a little bit taller. Because now you're thinking about the bridge. I want a nice bridge, right? And like, oh man, are they bedazzling their bridge? I could bedazzle my bridge. And you start worrying more about what the bridge looks like than the form of the bridge, than the function it was supposed to serve. And guess what? You start utilizing resources that very easily could have closed the gap into bedazzling your effing bridge. And then you got a bedazzled bridge. What does that look like? Stripe screenshots, 2 Comma Club awards. I'm not saying those people are not successful. I am saying that's a bedazzled bridge. I hope they built the bridge all the way across and then came back and decorated it with awards. Otherwise, what humans will do is we will start saying, no, look, I'm successful. Look at my bridge. Oh yeah, look at my bridge. See, here's proof that I'm successful. And they never get across the gap, and they never get the things that matter the most to them. Very, very common, right? Another example is like, all right, cool, you got to hang this. You just got to hang this photo or build this piece of furniture or something. That's the real goal. You say, what do I need to accomplish today? The most important thing is that I build this furniture before my spouse gets home. And you realize, I wish I had a better screwdriver. You know, so you go to Home Depot, and then you find all these screwdrivers. You're like, wow, there's a lot of kind of screwdrivers. And then the sales guy shows you this drill. This drill's really cool. And then you start going down this rabbit hole because you want to have the nicest drill. Because now there's all these guys in line that have like all these sweet drills, and they're talking about how great their drill is, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, all right, well, I better special order the best drill. Oh, it won't be here. I can't have it for 2 days. Cool. I'll just order it and I'll come pick it up in 2 days. Now you're a tool collector, apparently. You probably could have walked over to the kitchen, opened a drawer, got a freaking butter knife, and tightened the screw, right? So we have a very high risk of hemorrhaging resources on the form. And that doesn't really move the needle forward. Like baggage has existed for a long time, luggage. Wheels have existed for a very long time. They were making better luggage. Very incremental improvements. You can't really like improve on luggage in a way that revolutionizes the world. And they were making better wheels, right? Last longer, more robust, different materials. Again, still a wheel. It wasn't until somebody said, wait a minute. This is what wheels are. Everybody's going, this is what wheels are for. We got to make better wheels. This is what luggage is for. We got to make better luggage. Somebody was like, whoa, what if I put these wheels on this luggage? It took a very, very long time, even though wheels and luggage have both been around, right? So you can look for evidence all around that humans have a very, very difficult time identifying, staying oriented towards a function. What is the most efficient path forward? So we have to catch ourselves. Am I getting stuck on the tools, right? You know, the most important thing to me is I just have a community of people. I have a community. Look, I freaking stream live on YouTube. Why YouTube? Right? Well, you have a membership site, and you could do it in Kartra, you could do it in ClickFunnels, but if you wanted to go one step up, you could do it in this platform because it has all these tools. I don't care. All that matters is that I can show up and I can share this with you, and you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so we need to bias function over form, and one of the things that we know is that humans have a very difficult time not obsessing over form and wasting resources on what it looks like. What it looks like. Stripe screenshots. Look at my Stripe screenshot. Photos of Lamborghinis. It's all bedazzling your bridge. That's perfectly fine if you have already closed the gap. You've already built your bridge. Okay. Now you got overage. Great. Do whatever you want. Function over form. Humans also have a tremendous capacity to criticize, especially beyond their ability to produce. We know that. 2 layers of this. One, we have to be aware that people that do not produce are going to sit around, not produce anything, and then when something does get produced, they're going to criticize. Well, I would have done it this way. You know, I would have built the furniture this way. I would have built the bridge this way. You know, you could have used a different kind of, show me your bridge. Oh, you don't have one, right? So there's a few levels of this. Level 1 is we have to recognize that we're going to have resistance. People are going to criticize anything that we produce, and the less that they have produced themselves, the higher capacity they're going to have to criticize the stuff that we do. The second layer is we have to catch ourselves. We have to catch ourselves when we start criticizing the form of something before we have diagnosed the function of something. Question 1, does it get the job done? If yes, do we really have room to criticize? Probably not. But we're going to anyway. We're going to have an urge, right? Now, the way that you, in my opinion, the way that you eliminate this criticism or you domesticate, you can't eliminate anything. The way you domesticate this criticism in others and when it creeps up in yourself is, I got this from Randy Massengale, again in the CCA. We talk a lot about the CCA. It's probably the most powerful program I've been a part of, is do you want to join? So somebody criticizes, I would do that differently. Cool. Do you want to build it? Invite them to join the party. On the flip side, when you feel a strong urge to criticize what is being produced by somebody else, ask yourself if you're willing to jump in. If not, shut your mouth and move on. Because either way, you're wasting resources. Listening to people criticize, right? Letting them put doubt, or what they're going to do is they're going to criticize more often than not the form, the tools you're using. I can't believe you're using that kind of camera. I'm sure there's professional video people that watch my videos. Like, I can't believe you're using that kind of camera. You could do it so much better this way, this way, this way. Cool. You know what? You do your version of Nicsmas for 12 days. And then we'll talk. Oh, you're not willing to show up and just talk nonsense forever. So I cannot take this into account. I cannot waste bandwidth on this. I am closing the gap. Is it pretty? No, I don't care. Maybe I'll worry about if it's pretty after the gap is closed, because all that matters, the biggest risk I run is not getting what I want. The biggest risk I run is not having good enough camera quality, not using the right drill. Oh, you could have had a cordless drill. This would have been easier. Well, it would have taken me 6 days to get a cordless drill, and I did it with a butter knife in 20 minutes. Right? So just recognize that. This is true. This is a very true thing. It will repeat itself. You will catch yourself on both sides of it. That's not saying it's not right to have, I'm not saying it's wrong to have nice tools. I'm saying don't have the right to criticize others and make sure you're focused on function over form. It's a ratio, and I'll talk about ratios in a minute. Because there's always a trade-off. There is always, always, always a trade-off, and oftentimes the trade-off is production for the capacity to produce. That's the thing we want to avoid. There's always a trade-off, though. So everything, in my opinion, should be measured in ratios. I'll give you an example. If you want to lose weight, fastest way to lose weight, eat less. Sure. When you eat less, your hypothalamus will downregulate your metabolism, right? Your metabolic rate will drop down. So eating less and less and less makes it harder and harder and harder to produce the outcome you want later on. There's a trade-off. What I would do is I'd look at the calorie to body weight ratio, right? There's a ratio. We gotta take into account the trade-off. So we have to understand there's a trade-off. If we're not accounting for that, we're going to blow ourselves up, because by producing, right, by building a bridge, we are expending resources. And if we want to make a prettier bridge, there's a trade-off. Now we're going like we would measure distance across relative to resources available. And if we start bedazzling our bridge, that ratio goes down. We haven't made any distance across, but we have less resources. Does that make sense? So we actually want to measure ratios by understanding the trade-offs. And in order to understand the trade-off, we have to choose the metrics we use based on where we're trying to go. Again, some people do this very naturally. This is like the Elon Musks of the world. Their brain does a lot of this naturally. It just ballparks it all, but it does it very naturally. So there's always a trade-off. You have to account for the trade-off. If you're going, all right, well, I ate 1,000 calories less and I lost this much weight, so I'll eat 1,000 more. Or I'll drop 1,000 more. Well, guess what? Eventually, you run out of food to take away. Now you're starving and you're still overweight and you have no levers to pull. If your only solution, this is what super linear data-driven people do, is they don't account for the trade-off. They just do these linear numbers. They don't work in ratios, oftentimes. And the only solution is, well, I'll just work harder. I'll do more tasks. Eventually, you run out of time. The way that you are producing is killing your capacity to produce later. You get a bunch of people that make it halfway there and blow themselves up for that reason. So there's always a trade-off. You have to account for the trade-off. If you make money with your brain, space in your brain, your knowledge worker, the trade-off is probably profit per hour, right? Of brain space. So the trade-off is how much bandwidth does this take relative to how much money it makes. I can't just do everything that'll make more money, because at some point I run out of brain space. So there's ratios. Hope that makes sense. So the measuring one number thing is, you will blow yourself up if you're measuring one number. So I'll do anything I can to make more money. Nope, there's a trade-off, and you have to account for the trade-off or you will blow yourself up. You're not going to get what you want. You have to protect your capacity to produce. You can't just produce nonstop. I've certainly blown myself up enough times. Yeah, well, welcome to being human. Okay, and what we feel is a side effect. This is probably the hardest one for people to understand because we want to feel things. And like, I get it, but we want to feel things, right? We want to feel momentum. We want to feel like it's working. We drink caffeine and we want to feel it work. You don't actually feel what caffeine is, right? It's an inhibitor. It's an adenosine inhibitor, which it means it just blocks your adenosine blockers. Adenosine is your sleep drive. So your sleep drive, the longer you're awake, the more adenosine you build up and the sleepier you get. Okay, their circadian rhythms, a wake drive. They're completely ignorant of one another, which is why you can stay up all night and then you don't just get more and more tired the next day. You can have a high sleep drive and a high wake drive. Fun fact. So what you do not feel being less tired. What you feel is jittery. My fingers are tingling. Ooh, I got a headache. Ooh, this is working. Right? We push until we feel something. We will do something until we feel tired, until we feel productive. You are beyond the point. You are beyond diminished returns if you feel it more times than not. Drugs are a great example, like caffeine. You do not feel the effects, right? You could take like creatine or even whatever, anabolic drugs, growth hormone, you can take whatever. You don't feel muscle grow. What you feel is side effects. Like people are like, I couldn't sleep at all because my blood pressure's super high. This stuff must work. Like, those are side effects. Example, when you fly from Seattle to Florida, it's the longest flight I could think of off the top of my head. You're going, 300, 400, whatever. You're going really fast. The evidence you have, you got your takeoff and some turbulence and some landing. But when you are in the air, you're going fast, faster than you've ever driven for sure. Do you want to feel like you're going as fast as you are? No, because we know when the risks are high, the faster it feels like we're going, it feels pretty dangerous, doesn't it? We don't want to feel that progress. So we know that intuitively in some ways. It's really hard though. So the other way we blow ourselves up is we're like, we got to work until we feel productive. By the time you've gotten there, you've probably started to kill your capacity to produce. That's a side effect. I can't even think straight. I read for so long or I studied for so long. Like, those are side effects. You should have cut it off somewhere before then. Of course, most people won't because we need to feel productive. We will push ourselves. We will be less productive day by day by day by day so that we can feel more productive. So just understand, if you're pushing, like, I want to feel momentum. Yeah, I can finally feel it. You are entering a zone of risk. You might want to step back and think about some of the things I'm going to introduce. Okay, the reason being, a complex system will regulate itself, especially an adaptive one. That's what the word adaptive means, like biology. But a complex system will regulate itself. It will try to maintain equilibrium. That's why, again, if you eat less calories, your hypothalamus will downregulate your metabolic rate a little bit. You'll toss and turn less in your sleep, right? It'll find any way to maintain equilibrium because this is where we survive. It doesn't care if you want to be there or not. This is where we survive. If you ever had a giant organization and said, here's our new core beliefs, here's our 5 new core beliefs. Everybody start acting this way. Maybe they'll do it for 3 or 4 days, but there's a regression to the mean. Right? Regression toward a mean is often an attempt at maintaining equilibrium. So complex systems will always try to get back to what is equilibrium, and equilibrium is a range. It's always a range. Nothing is straight line linear, right? Can we agree on that? Do we have any doctors in the house that want to agree or disagree? Okay. So complex systems will regulate themselves, adaptive ones especially, biology. A lot of organizations are adaptive systems, not necessarily by design, but they will try to get to where they know they're safe. We know that. If we push until we feel something, you know what happens? When your hypothalamus recognizes that you have consumed less calories, it downregulates. You think you're producing because I'm doing something productive, I'm eating less, and my weight went down a little bit. Yeah, I should keep doing this. I can feel it. The side effect is you are now killing your capacity to produce. It's going to be much, much harder to lose weight later on. You want to push until you can feel it. I could really, every day I see the scale going up or I see the scale going down, whether you're building muscle, losing fat, whatever. Yeah, I could feel it. This is a good rate. It is a rate at which I feel productive. You are almost certainly shooting yourself in the foot, because if it is a rate that is great enough for you to feel productive, it is a rate in which the system, the negative feedback loops and the positive feedback loops, will kick in to try to downregulate. This is how systems work. Okay? So if you want to lose weight, you want to do it at a rate that is within the day-to-day fluctuation, so that all of the signals in your body designed to maintain equilibrium don't downregulate to make it harder. No, you will not feel it. You will lose 0.5 pound a week for a year, right? And you're going to be like, oh, it's not fast enough. In a complex system, the optimal speed is almost always slower than anybody wants, faster than anyone thinks is possible. But I want to feel it. I want to see the scale going down consistently. Like, cool. You are going to fail because of your need to outpace what a complex system can sustain. You're being an a-hole. You are. But I want to lose weight faster. I want to make money faster. You are being an a-hole. I get it. We all want to look a certain way tomorrow and have a certain amount of money. I get it. Homeostasis. I'm a doctor. Homeostasis, yes, a process that occurs in every domain. Thank you. Right? So we have to understand, like, the need for speed is exactly why we don't get anywhere. There is a range. For most humans, you're looking at about, well, let's say 1% up, 1% down. So I'm 230 pounds. I'm a large human. 2.3 pounds up, 2.3 pounds down. That's a 4.6 pound range. I want to gain and lose weight within that range. Not 40 pounds in a month, right? I don't want my biology, which was designed to maintain equilibrium, to recognize that I am losing weight. I don't want to recognize I'm losing weight. It's the same with business growth. My businesses do this too. Everyone's, oh, it's not fast enough. And then 2 or 3 years later, they're like, how the fuck did you grow so fast? Within a range. A range, as much as often, we call it below the adaptive threshold. I want to keep the changes below the threshold of adaptation, because adaptation pulls us back to equilibrium. So it makes a whole lot of sense. If we don't want to be where we are, we actually don't want for whatever to pull us back to equilibrium. Now, of course, if we go the wrong way, right? If we go opposite direction we want, there'll be a regression to the mean. It's very likely that we get pulled back the other direction too. Yep, reminds me when we feel thirsty, we've waited too long to drink. Hopefully this kind of makes sense. So we know this, but we're still like, I want to go faster. Human impulse. My human mindset tells me I need to push harder. I need to feel it. I don't feel productive today, so I'm going to push until I am. And then you blow yourself up. Probably had a very productive day until you decided to push until you could feel it. You're probably right on track with your fitness goals until you decided, you know what, I'm not losing weight fast enough. I need to see it. I need to feel it. Well, that very need to feel it and pushing until you feel it is the reason you will hit a wall and maybe never lose weight again. It's the very reason I need to make more sales faster, that your onboarding falls apart, you get a bunch of chargebacks, your clients leave, and they leave bad reviews, and now it's even harder to get more business later. This is not a singular domain. That's what Nicsmas is all about. This is across all domains. The people I get along with best are usually doctors. You'll see I have a lot of doctors on here. I still have clients. I have like 30 clients that are doctors because it's inherent in their curriculum, right? Like, you pull this lever, something else can happen down here. But the problem is, if you move too fast, everything about biology will try to pull you back. It'll downregulate. There's negative feedback loops. There's positive feedback loops. There's all kinds of things we're not considering. So, yeah, I get it. You have a need. Here's what we need to know. If you're a doctor or a chemist, like if you're a PhD in chemistry, this will probably resonate, and you can correct me in the comments. Anything I say that's not exactly correct. Complex systems have a minimum effective dose, MED, and a maximal recoverable volume. Minimum effective dose is how little you can do to maintain, because complex systems will regulate in an attempt to maintain equilibrium. It's actually much easier to maintain a thing than to get there. It's really hard to get to $1 million of revenue. It's very easy to maintain it. It's really hard to get to a certain weight. It's much easier to maintain it than it was to get there, because we actually have the forces working for us in maintenance, because everything's trying to regulate, attempt to maintain equilibrium. So the goal is to get there and then maintain it. Maximal recoverable volume is how much of a thing can you do without blowing yourself up entirely. So let me explain this a few different ways. Minimum effective dose. If you are sick and 5 milligrams of this medicine will make you better, 5 milligrams is the minimum effective dose. Taking 10 won't necessarily make you better faster, but it is increasing risk. It's putting additional stress on your internal organs. Who knows what other side effects, right? So if 5 will do the job, 10 is additional risk. If you take 10, you're being an a-hole. You're being an a-hole. You're introducing yourself to risk for no reason. If you've exercised for a very long time, this is an example for me. I can maintain my body weight and the way that I look and I feel if I work out for like 90 minutes a week. Three times a week, 30 minutes. I'll maintain the way that I look. It's fine. For me to change the way that I look and feel, I'd probably have to exercise 6 or 7 days a week, because I've been doing it for 16 years. Right? So if I can maintain my fitness level right now for 90 minutes a week, and it would take 7 hours a week to make a change, anything more than 90 but less than 7 hours, 90 minutes and less than 7 hours, is wasted energy. It's more than I need to maintain, not enough to make a difference. This is what most people are doing in all areas of their life. Right? You are working twice as many hours in your business and your revenue is about the same. The reality is you could probably go back, you cut your hours in half, and your revenue would still stay there, because that's where it has equilibrium. So why are you doing all those extra hours if it's not enough to move the needle, right? So what it looks like is we have minimum effective dose on one side. This is maintenance. This is maximal recoverable volume. These are the things that we need to change. We cannot change everything. If we put 3 things in the maximal recoverable volume, we're going to blow ourselves up. No question. Dicka says it sounds like a bimodal strategy. Yes, you will see that all things across all domains, in my experience, and I've deep dived on a lot of random stuff, they all fall on channels, barbells, and pyramids. This is a barbell, a bimodal strategy. So most people are right here. They're spending enough time on their relationship to keep it where it's at, but not enough to change it. But actually more than that. They're spending more than the minimum effective dose, but not enough to change it. This is wasted time, effort, and resource. It's very difficult for us to say, this extra time I'm spending with my spouse to fix our relationship is wasted time. But if it's not enough to make a difference, then it is wasted time. So you can say, I need to recapture that time back. This is on minimum effective dose for now. Right? Or you could say this is the most important thing to me. But if that's on MRV, then other things to make the bandwidth, to recapture the resources to do this, we have to say, look, I'm not doing enough in my business to change it, but I'm doing more than I need to maintain it. So I'm going to stop doing the overage. I'm going to put it on minimum effective dose, recapture this bandwidth and put it into my relationship. Right now, fitness, I feel like I'm in a good place. I'm exercising 4 days a week. But like I just said, I only need 3 days for 30 minutes to maintain where I'm at. And I'm not doing enough to change anything. This is wasted bandwidth. This is wasted resources. Let's just put it over here, put it on minimum effective dose. Hey, now we have no wasted resources. We're maintaining the things or improving the things that matter without wasting resources. What most people will do is they'll put everything over here. Everything's always important all the time, all in, yada, yada, yada. But it's actually not enough because they don't have enough time. So they end up somewhere there, and then they burn out, and they end up over here. They can no longer even do enough to maintain, and it goes backwards. So by choosing not to spend a little bit less time on your fitness right now, by choosing not to put it on minimum effective dose, you are choosing to blow it up later. I almost guarantee it. Yeah, it's tough to say, you really mean that, like, I know if I go back to what I was doing with my spouse, things will stay the same. And what I'm doing right now, I just can't find the time to really move the needle. Then yeah, it might actually be a conversation to go back to spending less time on it right now so that you can recapture some of those resources and get these other things moving, right? Because then your business, when you get to where it needs to be, it'll be much easier to maintain. Once you get there, you can move your business over and you can move your spouse here. And now, instead of staying the same for years and years and years, we are systematically stair-stepping these things up. Okay, so you say, all right, look, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to focus on my business, everything else on minimum effective dose, right? And then I'm going to put that on minimum effective dose. I'm going to maintain it. And, maybe next year I'll do it again, and I'm going to spend the next year maintaining it. All right, so your business looks like this. Now, the relationship, as hard as it might be, I'm going to leave that on minimum effective dose right now. It's going to stay the same as it is. The key is that it doesn't get worse. And then when my business, or I'm going to leave it right here. Sorry, that's wrong. When my business is here, my relationship is the same. Now, see this? We do this with our relationship. And then we do this. If I find a good color. Some version of this with our fitness. And over time, on average, all of those things have improved in a way that we have managed our resources to lock it in. Right? So you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same exact time. What I know is that if you keep it in the middle, here's what I can tell you. If we keep it in the middle, this is not enough to make any changes. You are not going to move forward. Right? Like, by definition, it's not enough to make a change. This is where most people get stuck. They work harder and harder and harder, and they split it between these three things, and it's not enough because it's very hard to change a complex system. Why? Because the system is built to maintain equilibrium. So we have to go above and beyond to change a system, which means we have to recapture, we have to identify what's the minimum effective dose. How can I just put my business on autopilot? Minimum effective dose to keep it on autopilot. My fitness on autopilot, minimum effective dose. It doesn't take much. I've done all the work. I can just maintain it here. All this energy, all these resources I've recaptured, I need to put that into my relationship. And then once this relationship has made a significant move forward, you can then put it on autopilot, lock it in there for a while, and move your fitness forward. Now, when your fitness is, you see how this goes? But sitting right here, doing more than you need to maintain and not enough to make a change is a lifetime of throwing your resources down the drain for nothing. And if you try to put all of it over here, what is going to happen is you will find the maximal recoverable volume, you will exceed it, and you will not be able to recover from it. Right? This is a concept I first introduced in medicine, but it pops its head up in all domains. Okay. So we have to understand minimum effective dose. When is the minimal the maximum, then the minimum is optional. Oh, when the minimum is the maximum, then the minimum is optional. I'll have to read that again. All right, so hopefully this makes sense. It's very hard because you want to, but I want to feel productive. Like, yeah, but like, do you want to be productive or do you want to produce? Do you want to feel productive or do you want to be productive? Those are the questions. Okay, so we have to understand this concept around that this is a risk domestication strategy, because if you need 5 milligrams to solve the problem, you take 10, you are adding risk for no reason, right? Max recoverable volume would be how much of the thing can I take without dying in medicine. Okay. How often do you reflect to see? It depends. It depends. It would be nonsensical for me to tell you every 90 days because some things aren't 90-day ventures, right? I'll talk about that in a minute. So the point of all of this is there are resources, all those previous slides, there are resources that are being wasted that can be recaptured and reallocated. They can. And I'll tell you, how do we identify the minimum effective dose? I'll give you some ideas in a minute. And the rest of Nicsmas is closing all these loops. I just opened a bunch of loops, and I'm going to systematically show you how I think about them. Okay. Don't go close loops. Do not go to Google. I mean, you can if you want, but that would be silly. You're going to go close loops and think you have certainty about something. It's not the point. The point is to leave these loops open and identify parts and just leave them open indefinitely if you can, so that you're going, oh, you know what? This might be a place where I'm wasting energy. You don't want to close it and go, aha, I understand it now. Now I have a plan, and you're just back in the same place with a fake plan. Not open, not being receptive to what's going on. So resources are being minimum effective dose and maximum recoverable volume. The amount you can do and still recover from. Right? If we push beyond that, we won't recover. It's burnout. So what I want you to take away from this, the seed is, wow, there's just some examples there. I'm wasting a lot of resources that could be recaptured. Here's why. Let me see if I can make myself bigger here. Here's why. Your first thought is going to be, I need more resources. And my argument to you is that you do not. You need to stop wasting the ones you already have first and reallocate them. I am willing to bet that not a single person on here needs more resources. They need to stop abusing and misusing the ones already available to them. Time, effort, identity, energy, reputation. Those are all resources, and you're wasting them. Right? So, great question about, this is really important, personal versus individual. This is a new set of loops. Ways we blow ourselves up. Personal versus individual indexing. The average man in the U.S. is 5'9". How come nobody on here goes, hey, Nick, what size clothes should I buy? And I go, buy something for somebody 5'9". Because what is average is not majority, and it likely doesn't work for you ever. Does that make sense? So like, on average, how often should I look at this? You're asking the equivalent of, like, what size clothes should I buy? I don't know, the clothes that fit you. Those are the size clothes you should buy. You want to buy some pants, you don't go, hey, Nick, what size waist does the average male have? Who cares? Those pants aren't going to work for you. Right? So you got to realize that the numbers that make up the average, the mean, work for very few people. There's more people on one side and the other side than there are at the average. Right? There's people that are 4 feet tall. There's men that are 4 foot something. There's men that are 7 foot something. And there's a whole bunch of in between. So when you say, like, on average, how often should I look at this? The average is almost certainly not what you should do. Super counterintuitive, right? But the average is certainly not what you should do. It's almost certainly not the answer for you. This is again, I actually picked this language. This is something I learned a long, long time ago. But this language, personal versus individual indexing, I got from Dan Nicholson, again, in the CCA program. We deep dive on all this stuff. Like, we're like, how often should I check my portfolio? How often? What do you do? Hey, you over there, what are you building your bridge out of? On average, what are people building their bridge out of? What does that have to do with anything? It's a huge misconception that you should, and again, the other dissonance is people go, I want to be above average, and then they go, hey, on average, how often should I do this? How the fuck are you going to say you want to be above average and then search for a bunch of averages to model your behavior after? It's another strange dissonance. So we have to understand the personal versus individual indexing, okay? Another example from medicine, and I like medicine because it's it's quantifiable, right? If you say, here's my blood work, here's my cholesterol, should I be worried? And your cholesterol on, let's say you're a 35-year-old woman and you're 150 pounds and you're whatever height you are, on average, this cholesterol is high. This is higher than the average 35-year-old, 150-pound woman. Does that mean something is wrong? We don't know. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing because we don't have, that's a data point. So this is supposed to be, it's not personal versus individual. It's individual versus group indexing. I was lazy on that slide. So it's individual versus group indexing. Group indexing is on average, women, your height, your size, your weight, have this cholesterol. That tells us nothing because all we care about is closing the gap, our own behavior. That does not tell us how to modify our behavior. In fact, we could take blood work from the 12 weeks before that and the 12 weeks before that and the 12 weeks before that, and we could identify a trend. And we could see that at this trend, if this trend continues, you will be within what we consider a healthy range in the next 12 weeks. That means you shouldn't change anything. So when we start thinking that group indexing applies to us, we start making really stupid decisions. We are right on track, but because we are using group indexing, individual indexing would be like, where am I relative to where I was yesterday? Am I on track? The fuck cares about what the average is? What does that have to do with your behavior modification? So we can say, again, oh, I'm outside of range, therefore I should change my behavior. Based on the group indexing, I am less healthy than an average woman my age. I better change. But if we took the trends over, let's say, the last year, we would see that, oh no, you're actually getting healthier. You should change nothing because at this rate, you will be in a healthy range. And 12 weeks after that, you will be considered healthier than most women. So your data relative to the average means nothing. Your data now relative to your data last time, that's 2 points, that's a line. We need a third line to get a trend. Now we have information, right? So how often should I reprioritize? It depends. It really depends, right? Like every 90 days might be a good option. It might be a good place to start, and then you adjust based on what you learn about yourself. Daily. There might be some things you need to reflect on daily and readjust. There might be things that you don't need to look at for another 10 years. I don't know. But to give you an average, on average, somebody with your kind of goals does this. If you make any decisions off that, you are adding risk because it has nothing to do with your own behavior. Make sense? You drop in the comments. Let me know. That one's tough for people because everybody wants them all on average. Am I above average or below average? Who fucking cares? What matters is the trajectory you're on. Where will you be? That's all that matters. If your trajectory is going to get you to where you want to be, who cares what other people are doing? If it's not getting you to where you want to be, who cares? Who cares if you're above average if you're not getting to where you want to be? Who cares if you're below average if you're on track to get what you want out of life? The hell does the average have to do with anything? So, hope that makes sense. It's supposed to be group indexing versus individual indexing. If I had said, hey, Joey, I'm putting on a birthday party. The average age, 9 years old. Right? It's a mix of boys and girls. Average age is 9 years old. And then you come to find out that like half of them are 1 and half of them are 17. And you put together a party for 9-year-olds. Nobody's going to enjoy that shit. But the average is 9 years old, right? So average doesn't matter. Go ahead, put on a party for 9-year-olds. 1-year-olds aren't going to know what's going on. 17-year-olds are going to sneak out back and smoke weed or something. Average doesn't matter. It's useful to be clear. The average is useful if your job is to keep a population alive. It is not useful as an individual that wants to thrive. Those are different things. When you go, ooh, the FDA is so stupid. Look at this food pyramid. No, the FDA, we actually looked at all of the research they used to come to their new guidelines. The FDA is brilliant, because if everybody ate like me, we would be out of resources. The world would be out of resources in like 60 days. So there's an average. How do we create something, some sort of guideline that everybody can follow, that also is sustainable, that helps keep people alive, because that's our job. The FDA's job is not to get everybody super shredded. Okay? Group indexing is good for mass population damage control, not so good for optimization. If you want to optimize to get to where you want to be, then you cannot use a ton of group indexing. Understand, we're going to vacillate between chaos and rigidity. We're going to yo-yo diet through life. I'll be quick on this one. I talk about this one a lot. We're going to go, oh, I need to fix this thing, and we're going to come up with a super rigid plan, and we're going to try to follow it for 3 or 4 days. We're going to say, F this sucks, and we're going to go into chaos. Okay, it's going to look a lot like this. I'll save that. I'll do that later. Okay, so we vacillate between chaos and rigidity. Humans are aiming creatures. This is what we do. And I work from bottom left to top right, because that's how our brains process things, like a chart. We're aiming creatures. This is our goal. We want to move up and to the right. This is why so many people are goal-oriented. We are aiming creatures. We need to have something to aim at. If we're smart, we know that this changes. We don't just hold on to it forever. This is a straight line to what we want. We do not follow a straight line to what we want. Right? It's a little bit too chaotic. And we have our tendencies, and then we recognize them and we realize see how we're not going in a straight line? We need to be more rigid. We need to have this extreme diet, and we go extreme the other way. It's so rigid that it's actually getting us further away from what we want. It takes a lot of bandwidth, yada, yada, yada. And then we go, F this. This is way too hard. I liked it better when I was eating pizza all day. Okay? And we just vacillate from extreme chaos to extreme rigidity. And hopefully we're making progress towards our goal. If we recognize this, we can go, wait, hold on. I know what this is. I need to not be so rigid, because I know that more rigidity means more chaos, right? And we can tighten this a little bit. And now, see, we just over-rotate a little bit less every time. So we're never on a straight line. That's an illusion. The trick is, like I said at the beginning, we catch ourselves. We say, no. If I get too strict, I will blow myself up, because I will rebel against my own rules. Boom. So you let a little bit of chaos. You say, okay, I was a little bit too lax. Let's add a little bit more parameters here. Right? This is energy conservation. This is energy going closer to the straight line. We have to understand we're going to do this, or we will yo-yo diet our way through life. And this is what yo-yo dieters do. Lose 30 pounds, gain it back. And they just do this back and forth. They don't make any progress toward the goal. This is yo-yo dieting. I'm working so hard. They work so hard, and it gets harder every time, and they're so tired, and they have such an identity with their battle, and they're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No progress towards the sustainable, I want to be sustainable 120 pounds or whatever it is. Okay? So we can recognize it, so that we can forgive ourselves, so that we know that we don't have to be so strict. We can allow some lax. We can find what works. But we are going to, it says self-undulating. Yeah, we're going to vacillate between chaos and rigidity. That's another concept I got from Dan Nicholson, which means you don't allow too much chaos, because you'll try to fix it with too much rigidity. And do not be too rigid. Do not think you're going to follow some super rigid plan. You're not, and that's okay. And when you fall off the wagon, forgive yourself. Otherwise, you go into a doom loop and you act like a complete a-hole for a really long time. And here's the other thing that we know. What's on the other side of every peak? Since the beginning of time, every peak, watch this, has a valley. if you're in crypto or you day trade, you'll understand. So here we are. This is how life goes. If you expect this, you are being an a-hole. That's your fault for having stupid expectations. Now watch this. Here's our goal, right? Here's a timeline that we deem appropriate. Sound familiar? And here's the model that we're just laying out right here. This is the chaos rigidity model. This is a peak and valley model. It's on a timeline. And we can discern whether we're on track. Okay? So we're going to have chaos, we're going to have rigidity. We're going to have chaos, we're going to have rigidity. Every peak is going to have a valley. What we look at is that this valley is higher than this valley. This valley is higher than this valley. If you don't understand this, you're going to go, oh, finally, I finally have $1 million, and then it's going to go back down to $750,000, and you're going to think it's the end of the world. But it's not. You should have expected this, because if you expected this to go straight up and level out, show me anywhere in history, any evidence in any natural structure or otherwise where there is not a valley that follows a peak. Right? Now, just like, I'm not even looking at the viewer count, so I might be losing it. Just like we want to mitigate or domesticate the undulations, we actually want to lower the peaks and raise the valleys, so we have less vacillation here. Why? It's more reliable, right? We want, so I'll tell you this. What we could do is we could draw a line across these peaks. We could draw a line across these valleys. This can look very familiar to traders, and this is all models that I built before I ever even knew what trading looked like. So it's just another place it shows up. So we could draw a line across here. This is the channel. This is the rolling average. So how do we know minimum effective dose? How do we know these things? We look back at historical evidence. We already have a channel. Pull the last 5 years of P&L from your business. Pull the last 5 years of your weight, your diet, whatever. And if you don't have it, that's okay. It's time to start tracking it. You don't have a channel yet. You don't know minimum effective dose yet. The goal is to find it. Individual indexing, though. Don't pull it from a book what the average should be. You're going to mess yourself up. Okay? So this creates a channel, right? And we want this channel to get more and more narrow. People are going to be like, oh, but what about the upside? Like, it comes back down anyway. We want this channel to be as narrow as possible so that we have more control, right? Less fluctuation, more reliability. Okay, so again, another certainty methodology. What do you want in a timeline that is appropriate, and are you on track? And here's the thing. Uncertainty within this channel is fine. I understand you might be, because when this happens, when we go down like this, right? Well, that's money, that's whatever progress this is, our brain thinks it's going to go straight to the shitter. But we don't have to, because if we just think a little bit, we could say, no, we're still within the channel. This is normal. Anything above here, let me change this color real quick. Anything above this means chill out, you're still on track. So I went back today, I said, if the market is hurting you today, I'm sorry, but you're kind of an a-hole, because the market, Bitcoin, is within any channel, any model that I have seen. That means you did not know this information before you got into the market, because it's well within. It is well within. Your body weight, your revenue, all those things. Okay? I'll come back to this in a minute. And let me tell you why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because this means stop fucking panicking. Don't change things that don't need to be changed. That's wasted resources. If you break down from here, that's a red flag. And potentially, if you break up from here, that's a red flag, believe it or not. Okay? Now, if you do break up from here and you go all the way up to here, which is what you want, you need to lock it in. Every minute you spend not locking this in, you are risking coming back down, right? So what we know is on either side of the peak is a valley. If you thought a peak was going to keep peaking, you are an a-hole. You have ignored all of history since the beginning of time. You cannot ignore all history and blame anybody else. That's not fair. It's not fair. It's not appropriate. Don't put that on anybody else. Every peak has a valley. What we want to see is these valleys getting higher. Right? Eventually, look at this. This valley is higher than this peak. And people will still blow themselves up in panic right here, even though it's better than their previous best. Because they were not prepared for it. I'm not saying like, hey, look how smart I am, or yeah, I'm saying, I'm not even telling you there's action to take. What I'm telling you is be aware of this so you don't blow yourself up. You don't take action where there's no action to be taken. This is just part of the undulation. Okay? All we care about is the rolling average. This right here, the rolling average right down the middle. Okay? Because that is what we want to maintain right here. This rolling average. Hopefully that makes sense. Right here. You're going to go above it. You're going to go below it. This is the line. This is the trend line, as they would call it in most places. If we're still on track, don't panic. If you're still within a channel, this channel is built on historical evidence, meaning this is, the lowest I've ever been over time, and these are my high points. That builds the channel. This is individual indexing. This is based on historical data about my business, my life, my family. This is the channel that my rhythms follow. Okay? Now, if we want to increase, if all we care about is the rolling average, the way we increase the rolling average is we bring up the valleys. Here's why. We bring up the valleys. How do I make a new one of these? I don't know. We bring up the valleys because by definition, we know the higher the high, the higher the peak, the lower the next valley. We don't want to create emotional valleys for ourselves. And we also know that by definition, if we are right here, this is the best we can do. This is the best that history tells us we can do. If we could do better, we would have. We might be able to do better later, but it's harder doing better than your best. In fact, you may have to be more rigid to do so. However, it's much easier to do better than your worst. So if you eat perfect for 6 days, nearly perfect, almost perfect for 6 days, and then you completely blow it on Sunday, just say, this was way too hard. Chaos and rigidity. Way too hard. And you binge like a maniac. Right? It's going to show up like this. The fastest way to bring this average up is to remove the binge. It's going to be significantly harder to eat better than almost perfect for 6 days. And it's probably going to create a bigger binge. However, it is much easier to just eat a little bit less like an asshole. You can budget perfectly 11 weeks out of the year. And then on the 12th week, you just say, you know what, F it. I'm splurging on some stuff I want. Just budgeting better for those 11 weeks is not going to move the needle nearly as much as not splurging. So we raise the rolling average by raising the floor. What does that look like? It's going from this to this, right? See the patterns? The patterns is recognizing all the ways we spend energy going any direction other than towards the thing we want. And it's always an undulation or vacillation that comes from being human. Okay? So the channel, right? And I didn't have this structure until, I had this framework, but not this particular structure until watching trading. You have rhythms, right? And I'll tell you what they are. you got, and this is directly from Dan, industry rhythms. So if you're in fitness, there's usually an influx of business around New Year's. You should expect a big spike around New Year's, and you should also probably expect to come back down because that's an industry rhythm. You don't try to, why would you put resources into changing, you can't change New Year's, right? Like these are things that people are like, you can't have a straight line because industry, there's business rhythms. Maybe you choose, all right, so we know New Year's is going to be a big year, or we know it's going to be a big time of year, so let's collect everything up front. Let's give them a discount to collect the whole year up front, get people to pay for a year up front. You're going to see a huge spike in revenue. That's a business decision, and it's going to definitely dip down because you chose to get it up front instead of recurring. That's a business rhythm. That's a business decision. So one of the ways, if you want to remove this volatility, is you could just lock them into a payment plan, right? That's a business decision. You can't change the industry rhythm, but you can change your business rhythm. And there's personal rhythms. There's just times of the year, whether you know it or not, that you should not make decisions because you're in a bad mood, you make bad decisions, whatever, right? So those all need to be baked in so that you can say, over the years, you go, no, this is normal. Every January, we see this huge spike in revenue from New Year's, right? So what we're looking for is, in this scenario, January goes up, levels back out, weeds investors up, levels back out, up, levels back out. You're going to see this pattern. This is a huge spike from January, and we leveled out here. Another spike from January, and we leveled out here. So this fall right here, there is nothing wrong. I know people that will work 40-hour weeks, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks, spend all their money trying to prevent this from happening, but it's an industry rhythm. All of those resources could have gone into just letting this happen, right? And just raising this up a tiny bit. Raising this up a tiny bit. So on and so forth. So we have to understand our industry rhythms, we have to understand our business rhythms, and we have to understand our personal rhythms. And then we can finally have a channel where we say, oh no, I'm making less money than last month. Oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm well within the track. I'm going to take a fucking nap. Recapture those resources, right? Bunch of people wasting a bunch of energy on a bunch of stuff that, like, it's an industry rhythm. There's nothing you can do about it. Why do stuff about why try to waste resources on things that are going to work out the same no matter what? Swimming upstream. So that's the kicker. And this is what we're going to finish the rest of Nicsmas is you can have it all, just not all at the same time. Right? If you understand what really matters to you, you understand how to allocate your resources and step up, you can have it all. It'll be slower than you want and faster than anybody thinks possible because that's the optimal rate. That is the optimal rate of a complex system. Okay? But you have to stop saying, well, on average, what is this rhythm? Who fucking cares? You need to sit down and be honest with yourself and identify your rhythms. You can pull, if you've been in business for 5 years, you could pull 5 years of your P&L, profit loss, balance sheet, whatever, and you will find rhythms in there. You will. Some of them will be industry rhythms. Some of them will be business rhythms. Some of them will be personal rhythms. It's on you to sit down and figure out how to sort what from what. And if you want a more level, you might like the volatility. But if the volatility stresses you out, don't collect a year up front. If you collect a year up front and then you stress about volatility, you're being an a-hole. All that stress you bring home to your family, you are being an a-hole. That is a decision you made, and you are unaware that you put yourself in a position for this precipitous fall. That fall is not a bad thing. It's just an effect of your business decision. It's not... The work goes up front. Okay, this is a lot of work to understand yourself and know yourself and do the work, to be honest with yourself. But the actual... getting what you want is so much easier than you make it on yourself every day. It's so much easier. Okay, hopefully this all makes sense. I know it was a lot, but you can't have it all. You can't straight line it. Stop trying to straight line it. In fact, trying to straight line it is why you blow yourself up. Get a trend. Get on track, right? And then raise the floor to collapse time. And then you can identify, do I actually need to make a change or not? If you're in this, no. You know, like if you're in your channel, then you're still on track. And if you can tighten this channel up, right, the less, what button did I push? The less volatility there is here, the more likely is that your goal and your ideal timeline meet at the same point. So everybody wants more upside. That's cool. I get it. I'm just going to keep getting all the things that I want faster than you even think is possible, and you keep telling me that it's too slow. But that's been the history. That's been my experience, and I'm sharing it with you. And I hope it's useful. You do not have to agree with it. You can pick and choose what is useful to you. What I recommend is revisiting again. What are the few things that matter? Should have talked about it on day one. What are the things that belong in maintenance mode? What are the things that really do need to get pushed forward right now? Don't lie to yourself. I know you think everything needs to get pushed forward like yesterday, but what are the things that really do need to get pushed forward right now? Right? If you're already making enough money, you'd like to make more, but like you make a comfortable living, maybe revenue and profit goes on maintenance for a while you work out some other shit. But don't leave it in the middle, because you're not going to get anywhere. You won't make more money or more profit or work out the other shit. Okay, which ratios are important to you? Which ratios are important? So it's not about making more money. I'll talk about money. I'll talk about a few different domains. It's not about making more money. Everybody thinks it is. I know it's not. It's about making more money while also getting some time back, right? So the ratio that we're measuring, if we're looking at a channel, I'll try to explain this best I can here. We determine the trade-off. So in order to make more money, I might have to spend more time. That's fair. Okay. So the trade-off is dollar profit to time ratio. We want that to improve. That doesn't mean making more money all the time. It doesn't, because it could be make more money for the same amount of time. That would increase the ratio. The other way to increase the ratio would be make the same money but get more time back. That would also increase the ratio, right? But by getting more time back, you have increased your capacity to make more money later. That's why we work in ratios. A single point like that is completely useless to me. We have to determine what are we producing and what gives us the capacity to produce and create a ratio and improve that ratio. So if the way that you know how to lose weight is to eat less food, believe it or not, the thing you need to produce, the capacity to produce, is to be eating a lot of food. If you're not eating any food, you can't take any food away. You've lost your lever. So it's calorie to body weight ratio. We either want your calories to stay the same, but your body weight to go down. That improves the ratio, right? Or your body weight to stay the same, but your calories to go up, because that gives us something to take away from later to lose weight later. It's a ratio of production to capacity to produce. That is what we want to improve all the time. That's how we get in the strongest position possible. No, I'm not making more revenue month over month over month, but if I'm doing the same amount of revenue, I promise you I am increasing the capacity so that I can make a quantum leap later on. Like, I have no interest in swimming upstream or the hustle and grind. So I'm watching ratios. Does that make sense? Calorie to body weight ratio, profit time index is one that we have. What are the ratios? It's not about everything going up all the time. Either your capacity to produce is the same and the production is going up, or the production is the same, but your capacity to produce is going up. Either way, it improves the ratio. Most people are going to go, well, revenue has to go up all the time. Production just goes straight up, has to go up, 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 up. And they blow themselves up. It's called burnout. It's called adrenal fatigue. So hopefully that's useful. Hopefully you can start thinking about ratios. What ratios are important to you? The best way to go is, what do I want more of? I need more time with my family. What's the trade-off? I'm going to have to work less. So now we have a work to time with family ratio that we can manage. You can work the same, spend more time with your family. That's a win. You can spend the same amount of time with your family and work less, right? I don't really know what you're doing with your time. So that's there's something more granular to get at there. But we improve ratios. That improves our position. Hopefully that wasn't too much. That was a lot. Appreciate you guys. That's the last Firehose of the face. We'll slow it down. We'll slow it down tomorrow. It's a big good one, though. Tomorrow's probably going to have the biggest impact for people because it's going to close a lot of loops.